part-time shifts? Is it all these things, right? That's the kind of stuff that I want, and I hope that you guys are willing to engage in. Hold on one second. Wow. So don't be bashful. This is your opportunity to talk to people, to ask the why, to ask how are you going to accomplish a thing, or to hold somebody to account and say, why wouldn't you do XYZ, or why can't this union accomplish whatever, or what can I do to be a part of it? This is your union. These are your candidates. We work for you. You deserve to be able to address them in any manner that you need to, all hopefully respectfully. I would hope that we can keep that. But nonetheless, ask your questions, have clear dialogue, and be relentless in your pursuit for an answer. They'll stay here for as long as you need to. I've seen them go 3 hours for this stuff. If you have the time, they'll stay here until you're satisfied with an answer, or until we can just get to a point where, you know what, this is the answer, but let's work together. So without further delay, Nick is one of my dear friends. I've been able to work with him on this board. There's nothing other than honesty that comes out of this guy, true passion. Almost to the point when I first met him, to be quite frank, I couldn't, it was hard for me to believe that somebody was so passionate about this union. Almost like a facade, but it's real, it's genuine. It's when nobody's looking, there's true integrity with how he handles himself and how he conducts his business on behalf of this union. And Jamal is, man, we go back a long time. He's matured so much as a person, so talented and smart, but now also so much more diverse than what he was when I first met him. When I first met Jamal, my son was 3. So to put that into context, I mean, my kid is about to graduate from high school. He's 18. Oh, no, my son was 5. Now he's about to graduate from high school. This is what I mean when people mature, right? You just look at your children, or something that has been growing with you the whole time. That has been our relationship essentially. Is Jamal was a different person from when I first met him to what he is now, and he's so impressive and so passionate about this union. It's an embarrassment of riches with these two. So I hope that you guys can truly learn and appreciate them the way that I do, and embrace this moment to be able to have a conversation that is desperately needed at this moment in time. So I'm done rambling. I'm going to throw it back to whomever is going to do whatever next on this call. I'm still going to hang out for whatever else is needed, but really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm really, really happy with the turnout for you guys to be able to have this conversation.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate that as well. Wanted to let the region know that Jamal has taken an unexpected flight delay. He should hopefully be on the ground in just a moment, but in true team fashion, Nick will hold the water for the two of them, as they will do. Now, with that, I'll just start by saying that the election that's coming up here is going to be probably the most important one in the history of, let's say, our careers. We had a very long run with Paul and Trish. And elections were kind of like, hey, like, why would we not want Paul and Trish? This is the first time in a very long time that we're going to elect, have a wide group of candidates to choose from. And it's imperative that when that ballot shows up at your house, you understand what is behind the names on the ballot. Who are the people asking for your support that will ultimately take on the ultimate responsibility of leading this union? So it's important not just to know what they stand for, but it's important to know who they are as people. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Nick. I think we may have Jamal with us as well. That's excellent. I'm going to throw it to Nick to start by introducing who he is. It's not just a candidate, but who's Nick Daniels the man. Nick, the floor is yours.
Well, we won't go through all of who Nick Daniels as a man is, but we'll go through a brief history of a little bit of background so you know who I am. And first of all, thanks, Alex, for the kickoff. Aaron, thank you. Thank the entire team for your willingness to dedicate, your passion. Everyone that works on this. We have over 300 people at this point working and helping on this campaign. And then thank you at Northwest Mountain for showing up to have these important conversations. I've done this, been in this union since 2003, so 21 years. And it's amazing to see the power of an election bring out the discussions, especially in a post-COVID world where we were, closed off from each other, not having the important discussions of who are we and what direction we're going. And we are here now doing it. So again, I just want to say, Alex, thank you for not only your friendship, but also coming to the board and you immediately engaging, in any way, shape, form you could to help just not only invest in me, but invest in us as a union. I do value that friendship dearly. To everyone else, if you don't know who I am, Nick Daniels, NACA Southwest Regional Vice President. As I mentioned, I started this career in 2003 with the FA. Well, prior to that, I was a United States Marine from 1998 to 2003 to completely date myself. And I ended up getting injured before going over to Iraq. And unfortunately, I plan on staying in the Marine Corps for my entire career. Loved it, and life had different plans. So in 2003, I was hired by the FAA. I said, just put me anywhere besides Texas, because I was from Texas, and Texas is ridiculously hot. I wanted to be back towards the West Coast. And in good FAA form, they said, we've got this place for you called Addison, Texas, or Addison Tower in Dallas, Texas. So I took the opportunity, knew I could bear the heat a bit longer. And then again, as life evolves, started having kids, was married, and that kept me here overall. So in 2003 or in 2005, I went from Addison Tower, that was a level 7 BFR tower, over to Fort Worth Center, took that leap, and really jumped in and certified just a few weeks before the White Book went into effect. Watching my friends around me that I was training with be paid, their pay froze, my pay froze, but theirs at a D2 or D3 levels, because that was the new CPC level. And I was, one of the things you were taught in the Marine Corps, and so many of our veterans out there, and just people in general, understand the beauty of the relationship between this union and our military services. It's about taking care of those to the left and to the right of you. And I knew in this fight, I had to be a part of it. I ran for area representative. I was kind of thrust into it by a lot of my senior controllers. I was the most junior person in the area, but they said, this is your fight. This is your union. You lead the way, and we got your back, because it's going to impact you the most. And what a beautiful, way for them to bring, a young person forward, but at the same time to show what happens when we all stand united. So I was area representative and secretary, vice president, facility representative for 6 years, ARVP, and now serve as an RVP and your candidate for NACA president. As I mentioned, I had kids along the way. I do have an 18-year-old son who's a senior, who's working on becoming a pilot. And I also have a 6-year-old kindergartner, and she definitely keeps me on the straight and narrow path in every way, shape, or form, and more than anything, ensures that I stay accountable and lots of learning with a girl. And she's my everything. I love her dearly, and I'm sure you will see her around more and more as she gets older. She loves being part of this as well. And thank you all again for the time. I'll turn it over to Jamal from there. I think he's set up, just ran off a flight. This is what happens with these town halls. So Jamal, if you're around, I'll throw it over to you, brother. If not,
how you doing, bro?
Okay.
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good, brother. Good to see you.
Okay, good. So thank you to everyone for joining our town hall. I am Daniels-Haltom, currently NACA's National Training Representative. I started my air traffic control career in the Air Force back in May of '99. Stayed in the Air Force to '05, transitioned to the contract tower world. Worked at 2 contract towers, one in Connecticut, Groton, Connecticut, and Martin State in Middle River, Maryland, right outside of Baltimore. Came into the FAA in '07, Las Vegas TradeCon, Tamiami Tower, Las Vegas Tower. Been at Las Vegas Tower since 2010. Yeah, became the FAC rep, or joined the E-board in 2011, and became the FAC rep 2012 to 2019. Served as ARVP for a bit. I was on the 2016 slate book negotiating team, which was an honor and a privilege to be part of that. Several capacities and roles I've served the union in, and I obviously think that the experience and the time, the education, the efforts that the union has put into me led me to put my name in the hat to be the executive vice president, and to join teams with Nick, because I have complete faith in him. And we think that we have a direction that will be more member-centric and lead our union back to the level of prominence that it has. My personal life, girlfriend is an air traffic controller as well. And then I have a daughter that's 20. She'll be 21 at May 22nd. So she's very aggressively approaching my pockets right now. So that's it. That's who I am.
Okay, thanks, Jamal. I think I neglected to mention at the start of the meeting that we are recording the town hall. Just wanted to let everybody know that. There's people probably from the region who couldn't attend tonight, and our plan is to go through and redistribute these both in their entirety and with highlights for people who couldn't attend. So, obviously, these are all about interacting with you. We'll go over some of the housekeeping items when we move to the Q&A portion, but we always like to start with giving Nick and Jamal a chance to just have some time to talk about some of the most important issues going on in the union right now. I'm sure you all can think of some that are important to you. So we want to start by giving them that time to touch on anything that they would like to as far as all things NACA. Go ahead, Nick and Jamal.
Yeah, first, it's the most important things that are out there is definitely your questions, the conversations that you want to have. Jamal and I visited about 145 facilities now, thanks to so many of you that have supported us. We've gone out and engaged, not just on town halls, not just sitting behind cameras, but this is our style. Let's be open. Let's have that conversation. May not have every single answer, but we promise is a work. Hearing those ideas and finding ways and paths forward, because there are so many great ideas that are out there. People are every day trying to find ways to improve, but we have to have engaged leadership in order to capture that. And it's never going to be just Nick and Jamal, the haver of all good ideas. This union is at its strongest when every single one of us knows that we can have an honest and real discussion, and ultimately a decision's made that we may all agree on, or some of us may disagree on, but we're still a union. And just because we disagree on one thing doesn't mean everything is broken when we understand the why behind it and the direction that we're going. So with that being said, we know we'll talk about pay in the conversations. We know that we'll talk about contract, employee movement. If those conversations don't come up organically, you can rest assured that we'll address them. I think the thing that I want to make sure that we level set this with is when we talk about why Jamal and I are running as a team. As he mentioned, his faith in me, the utmost faith in Daniels-Haltom, his ability to communicate, to lead, to explain the collective thinking, and overall his ability to articulate topics and subjects that show you it's not just about a me, my, and I stance, but how we become better or stronger from executing some of our provisions from all the way from our rights to everything that is why a union has a purpose and what your purpose is inside that union. Also, the fact that leadership is not a individual thing. People can be leaders. Just because you have the title, it doesn't matter if you're president of this union or you're a member at Pueblo Tower. Leaders are everywhere. You don't need a title to be one of those to be a leader. And the thing that is most important to Jamal and I is that we identify those leaders out there. We invest our time in them, and that those conversations between myself and Jamal is leadership being a team sport. The holding each other accountable, the being able to have the trust in one another, and yet it's not about surrounding yourself with yes people. It's surrounding yourself with people that believe passionately about their topics and about their desires. We have the ability to listen to one another and ultimately make a decision and make a choice to move forward. And I know Daniels-Haltom brings all of that to the table. It's an honor to run with them and bring all those leadership aspects out. So I can't wait to hear your questions. Aaron, when after Jamal talks for a moment, Aaron will walk you through how you ask your questions tonight. And it's just going to be open. It's going to be transparent. Everybody's going to see it. It's not going to be moderated. It's not going to go through a backroom person where they sanitize the question before it comes out. You ask your question, let's talk about it. So Jamal, all you, brother.
Yeah, thanks. This has been, I think, our 6th town hall, and they've all been a little bit different, and we like it that way, for it to be organic and not manufactured. It's driven by you, as this union should be driven by you, the membership. and leaders take their cue while also providing direction, right? Leadership is not a position where you hide behind votes when it's unpopular, and you just live in the good and never accept the bad. In truth, in true form, a leader should always deflect praise and take blame. That's what we're about. The I in our union is something that is hurting our union. We need to be collective in our voice. We need to be protective of one another, and we need to be honest and forthcoming with the membership. One of the things that is most disappointing to me is that our union politics, if you will, are starting to mirror that of the American politics, and that's unfortunate because we have one common goal. There should be no disparity in the truth. It should be very crystal clear, all of the things that we face, the difficulties that we encounter as a union, and there should be absolutely no ambiguity about those things. One of the things that came up yesterday was Title 49 and our ability to be stricken or carved out of executive orders in the event that they came. And the fact that that comes from an actual candidate for one of these offices is very damaging potentially, and even worse to me. The role of president of our union should be to make sure that all members have the truth and are able to make decisions based on the truth. So very disappointed to see that. Very disappointed to see you all an attempt to manipulate our membership. It's unfair, and it's not what we've stood for in my time in this union. Very proud. The best 17 years of my life have been being part of this union. And my charge, our charge all, is to make sure that air traffic controllers in the future have the existence that we've had. We had some terrible times, those of us who started during the White Book, and we through legislation, through continual progress, overcame those. But we have to be honest about how that all took place and what could happen if we don't mind ourselves and protect ourselves in all avenues that we can. So that's just a little bit of a prelude. Again, you're going to drive this, no questions off limits, no matter personal or just about our union. We'll take them all, and that's who we are. So over to you, Aaron.
Okay, so we're going to move into the question and answer part. I'll go over just some housekeeping items. The first way you can ask a question is use the raise your hand function. If you don't know where that is, it's just at the bottom. You scroll your little cursor over there and you'll see it kind of dead center. It says raise hand for those new to Zoom. So put your hand up. I'll slide over, I'll call on you, I'll click the button so that you can unmute yourself. And if you're comfortable, we prefer that you turn your camera on. It becomes easier to interact that way. For those wanting to use the chat function to ask a question, obviously you can type directly into the chat. You can find that also on the bottom control panel there. If you would, please don't post it directly to me, the host. Post it to everyone. I want to take a second to thank Christy Hobson. These chats fill up in some of our town halls like immensely, and it takes someone staying on top of each question to make sure none are lost. So Christy is here to help make sure that I get the questions, and if it gets buried because there's 50 questions in there, we don't leave anybody walking away with something unanswered. As both Nick and Jamal said, you've got something you want to ask it. Be respectful. Don't pull punches. You heard some crazy thing out there that lives in the Ethernet and you want information directly from these guys, just ask them. Be respectful. We're all union members here at NACA. One team, one union. So can use the chat, can use the raise your hand. I also like to mention that it doesn't just have to be questions. If you've got ideas that you'd like to share here with all of us that you think would move the union forward, we're capturing those so that if they get the opportunity to act on those things, they have heard from you. And we've got a list of things that they could start with. So please don't feel like it's confined to just asking questions. By all means, we know there's a lot of talent out there, especially in the Northwest Mountain region. So with that, we'll open it up. Either raise your hand or post questions, and we'll get started. Usually the first one is hardest to get going. So who's going to be the brave the brave soul. Here we go. Jenny Benjamin. Jenny Benjamin wins the prize tonight for first question. Jenny, welcome, sister.
Hey, I'm so glad you guys are doing this. Hopefully my baby doesn't start crying. I'm only watching him by myself right now. But my question is I've seen a lot in the last few years about just decreased activism, decreased unionism. Like we've had a lot of people drop out of the union. So we've seen a lot of that happen in the last few years. So how do you guys see us changing that? Like, I want to see more activism. I don't want, especially for the fact that I always feel like I'm like running myself ragged, trying to get people to be involved and trying to inspire and motivate them. And I think some of that does come from the top. And I was just kind of curious what you guys think is the solution to that from the top down.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. I'll be brief, and then Nick, I'm sure we'll have a response as well. Haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing great, by the way. Look, activism is a direct reflection of leadership. When you have a union, well, let's do a quick history lesson. We went through COVID. Paul Rinaldi was our president, Trish Gilbert, our executive vice president, and what I think their superpower was that they went out amongst the members and they inspired, they empowered, they inspired, and that's part of why we ran as a team and part of why we had that slogan that some people mocked as a buzzword, but it's really about that. It's about giving people something to belong to. The negativity in our world seems to be rampant right now, and people are drawn to negativity. And when you are afraid to go out and say, look, we actually don't have it as bad as it may sound. We are a strong union. We are only as strong as our membership wants to be, and we need you to be engaged. Empower people, provide opportunities. Don't make it a boys' club. Don't make it a girls' club. Make it inclusive, make it strong, and make each and every member know that they have somewhat of a duty to be part of this union. We pulled ourselves up through the White Book collectively because we had something to belong to. We weren't afraid to say that we needed our PAC to be strong. We weren't afraid to say that we needed our members to be part of our union. It seems like now we have a leadership style that says, I'll give you things. I'll give you things if you give me your loyalty. There's only so many things you can give. You're going to run out of things to do really quickly if that's the style that you have as a leadership. That's where we seem to be right now. So what we're going to do is get back out, engage the membership, provide opportunities for people to be part of it, be transparent, be honest, use new methods of technology to communicate with members. And what I always tease Nick with, and he laughs at the word, is we need to be omnipresent, be everywhere, be ubiquitous, right? We want people to see NACA and think positivity, and I want to be part of that. So it's a little bit longer. I apologize for that, Jenny, but I'll pass it to Nick now.
First of all, my education is never ending with Jamal on our drives on the weekend, going out and visiting facilities, and ubiquitous always finds its way into the conversation until I can use it properly. But with that being said, Jenny, first of all, congratulations. One of the best names I've heard in a long time for your son, Jet. So welcome, Jet, to the NACA family, and happy to have you here. Thanks for starting it off. Jamal, absolutely, as always, I mean, couldn't put it any better. Engaged leadership ultimately drives and sets the example for everyone else. And what I've seen for the 2.5 years of now being on this national executive board, and just one of many reasons that drove my desire to run for president and to run with Jamal, is because that is lacking in every way, shape, and form. It takes persons that are going to want to be with the membership, that aren't just there because it's their job and they show up and then quickly usher out the door. That it is genuine engagement, that you're wanting to listen and hear the thoughts of our members so it can help guide and shape your discussions later on. When we don't have that, which we don't right now, in Rich as the president, that becomes what everyone else sees as the example. Oh, I guess we don't, talk after 8 p.m. I guess we don't, have discussions, or we don't hang out all together. And when we start losing that energy and that momentum, we become our victim to, just becoming our own style of introverts, instead of what's been our greatest power is ultimately being connected. And the other thing that must change is we have turned into where somehow the National Executive Board is either set apart and above the membership, or that all the information goes to one person in our union now, and that's the president. And that president doesn't either silos the information so everybody has a form or just a small portion of the story so they can ultimately manipulate the storyline. That is something that Jamal and I 1,000 commit to changing, is bringing our leaders back in for the conversation, bringing the national legislative chair and the co-chair to our NEB meetings, every other meeting, bringing in the safety chair, bringing in the national training chair, bringing in our LR lead, and then making sure we all have the tools, the information, and direction and purpose ultimately to go out and move this union forward. So those are just a few examples that I know we'll bring. And the other commitment is that you will see Jamal and I in our first term in all 313 facilities. One of us will step in 313 facilities. We'll have crested 200 by the end of this campaign on our RDOs and weekends, in our annual leave. So with that being said, I know it's going to take a lot of work, but we'll be out there with you. We'll be having these important conversations.
Thanks for being the brave soul, Jenny, to ask the first question. Currently, the chat is still empty and I don't see any hands up. I know that's going to change. I'm hoping someone will follow Jenny's lead and ask a question. Here we go. All right. Cassie, I'm assuming it's Cassie LaBelle. It says, I interact a lot with lower level facilities in my leadership position in the Northwest Mountain region. And one of their major concerns is pay, as is everyone's. I'm sure if we can open the contract because of we can't open the contract. Sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on after this. The EOs, what do you guys see as something that we can do in the meantime? Any ideas if the contract isn't an option when we can, for what we can do for these guys?
Yeah, I'll kick off and cover a small portion of this because I know Jamal and I both this will lead into a much larger conversation from there. Number one is ensuring that we do negotiate in 2026. That is the goal. Let's not forget that is the goal. And what a lot of the conversation has been around is the reality of there being executive orders again that stifle our ability to bargain and open that. When we open the contract, those executive orders go into effect. And the first thing they do is strip our rights to negotiate permissive subjects of bargaining. And those are that's about 77 articles in our contract or around there. So we will, if we have the ability to shape that decision, the goal is to find a way to protect ourselves in a scenario like that by not having the agency be able to just have a gun to our head and open the contract if executive orders in effect. Is you can do a few things. One is you can extend the contract in order to protect us, but with still the ability to negotiate in 2026 if there are not executive orders in effect. If the executive orders are in effect, one, you fight it legislatively. You go out and you engage the President of the United States and their teams to see how do we legislatively either move them, change them, or get rid of them. But now you're not on a ticking time bomb of 2026. You can do it as fast as you want. The other thing is being able to negotiate, and you don't have to just wait for a term agreement. One of the things that Rich hasn't done is he didn't engage in 2023 or 2022. He didn't engage in 2023 to open up the CBA. He said he was waiting for 2026 to honor a commitment. But now we're here at an election. And he says, well, I wanted to negotiate now. And the agency has said, we'll wait till 2026. So we should use that back against the agency and saying, okay, if you want to negotiate, we want to negotiate, then we will ensure that that happens in January of 2026 when we open it. But in the meantime, we could be negotiating MOUs. If there are executive orders in effect, we don't have to wait for a term agreement. We have very robust MOUs that have changed pay, that have changed the course and the direction of our entire workforce, and that's midterm bargaining. We would immediately engage in a robust MOU for items that the agency wants to engage about, obviously pay that we want to engage about, and start exploring those options. So that way we're not waiting around playing a waiting game until who knows when these executive orders will go away. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'll give it over to Jamal if you want to take it from there, brother.
Yeah, and when he says MOUs, I think what we want is national MOUs, and not MOUs to continue to piecemeal one by one to address real issues. They are real issues, but we want to be in a more collective manner. A little bit of a history lesson because it's important. We did negotiate pay and extend both the Green Book and the Red Book with MOUs that adjusted our pay bands and how we move through the pay bands. So it doesn't have to be a full term negotiations in order to do that. We do have some ideas and concepts that frankly we picked up on our visits and our travels amongst facilities. Some of those ideas are to look at, having a class delta multiplier. Right now, presently, our class deltas don't get any multiplier whatsoever. They sit at 0%. Our Charlies and Terces are 10%, and our Bravos are 25%. The work that controllers do in class delta airspace has increasingly gotten difficult. The world pays attention to it. We have more people aviating than ever before, particularly before the time when when the TCI was first created, or when the multipliers that are in the TCI were created. Every facility has stars now and an ability to use radar. ADS-B is in most of our facilities. So we have the capability to potentially have a separation standard in the Delta airspace that would then increase pay, right? So we have to look at all of those things. We have to, and speaking to members, they ask us, why is AG pay the way it is? I come to this place, I'm working for the government, and I get out of the academy and you set my pay at such a low level that I can barely execute. I can barely live. Why don't we set it at the first developmental pay level so that people can breathe right away? So Cassie, be it low level or high level, we want to address those things for everyone, and then look at multipliers, look at Saturday premiums, and again, we're not the people that say everybody gets a sundae, everybody gets ice cream, and we got a vending machine and it's free. We know these things cost, but we know that the agency wants to recruit and retain the best and brightest, and in order to do that, they're going to have to compete for the people that they want. They're going to have to compete to keep us, and they're going to have to compete to recruit those that are coming through the door. Highly technical skilled jobs such as ours require skilled employees. Skilled employees want wages. We have to find ways to increase those wages, and we don't have to wait for a CBA, and we certainly don't have to wait and try to do it under executive orders that would gut us as a union. And thanks for the question, by the way.
Yes, thank you very much. I also wanted to let everyone know that if you you don't have to wait until Nick and Jamal give their full answers to put your hand up if you want to get in the queue. I know we still don't have any hands up yet, but the Northwest Mountain is one of my favorite regions in NACA. So many great names on this town hall tonight. Everyone's so polite and nice. You don't have to stand on ceremony. Now, we have a question from our brother in Region X, Mark Roush, from the chat. Mark says, although I'm not in the Northwest Mountain I work at NNM, which is in Seattle. We share many of the same concerns and passions with our brothers and sisters in the Pacific Northwest. In Region X, we struggle with membership. And I want to say thank you to Nick and Jamal for the inspiration and motivation towards our membership at large. I'll save my questions for a Region X town hall, but I appreciate your words on raising activism among our members. It certainly means a lot to us. So that was a very nice commentary from Mark. We appreciate that. And I know we do have a Region X town hall coming up soon.
Well, it's excellent commentary, but it does lead to, while not a question, the statement that he made about reaching out to all of our members. Cassie just asked the question about lower level facilities. I worked at Tamiami Tower, which was a level 7. Nick started at a level 7. We've transitioned to higher level facilities, but along the way, you can't have a union where you only care about the haves. Everyone has to be included in that. Our Region X family When we meet them, the questions we have for them and the questions they have for us show that we have education gaps, including myself. I'm no different than the rest of the membership, but we don't have to keep those education gaps. We have to close them, in fact, and be able to produce and make everyone feel a part of this union, because we're stronger that way. You know, if we have 20,000 potential members and we only have 15,000 members, that means 5,000 opportunities. No matter where those opportunities are, we want to seek them and bring those people into the fold. There's strength in numbers. We cover more congressional areas when we have more engaged members doing the job, so that, as Jenny said, our activists are spread more thinly now. As we recruit and retain members, we'll be able to do the job better, and it affects us all. So when we go to the Hill, you're a NACA member. They don't care if you're a Region X or if you're a controller, a NOTAM's rep, a flight service station. They just see NACA, and we want to make sure that every NACA member feels part of the family.
Very well said, Jamal. Still waiting on some hands to go up, some questions to go in. I'll take a second to let everyone know that while you're thinking of your questions, Christy's posted in the chat a couple times now this link to a Jot forum. As we said at the beginning of the town hall, we're doing paper ballots this year. So no electronic ballots, and that makes it a little bit harder to get people to make sure that they go through the process of filling out the ballot and mailing it back. And that's going to take a grassroots effort. That's going to take all of us making sure that our brothers and sisters use that vote. This is the most important thing they have at their, if you're happy or unhappy with the direction things are going, this is your time to be heard. So if you would like to volunteer to help us make sure we get the vote out and we get our sisters and brothers, make sure their addresses are up to date, make sure they receive their ballots, make sure they've mailed their ballots, and make sure they know where to go to get the information they need to vote responsibly, to vote accordingly, to vote with their values. So please don't hesitate to click the link, give us your name and contact information. We'll reach out and we'll add you to our list of grassroots efforts to help make sure that NACA votes in 2024.
Yeah, Aaron, I'll throw one out there and keep it moving along. Yes, so let us know. What do you think about pay? What are your ideas? Where do you want us to engage? If Jamal and I, have the ability to work with a team that's going to go in and negotiate directions around pay and what you're seeing at your facilities and what it looks like. Is it pay band centric? Is it the moving through the pay bands? Do you all have any ideas along or around them? I'd love to hear that and see if that sparks some ideas and questions from there. Because Jamal and I have many things we could talk about from it, but part of it is seeing what ideas you have. And I see somebody with their hand up, so I'll pause there, brother.
Yep, we got Cody Baker. I had you unmuted and then you muted it. There we go. I think we got you, Cody.
Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me okay? I'm at a park for a sporting event.
We hear you great, Cody.
Okay, hey, I just wanted to, I'm also like Cassie, also at a lower level facility. And in addition to pay, a lot of my members are concerned with the potential CRWG implementation. INCEPT also, as it exists, is not a reliable path for transferring where you're from, or just to where you want to live or where the raise might be. I'd say there's a lot of anxiety around what that implementation of the new numbers will look like. Can you guys speak to anything to that effect? What the implementation might look like if it was solely your decision to make? I'm sorry, my phone is also dying. Is there anything, perhaps, is there a path forward in which controllers at lower level facilities or at higher level facilities where they're not living where they want to live, are going to have any reliable mechanisms for getting to where they want to live in a world where we're already understaffed, we're about to be even more understaffed? I know we've talked about like waterfall distributions perhaps, or delayed implementations of things. So I was just hoping you could speak to that effect, maybe any tactics or ideas you guys had implementing what was our goal that we fought for, while preserving or perhaps also implementing mechanisms for controllers who are already in and doing their time and waiting to move to where they want to live.
Cody, appreciate the question, brother. had the honor to work on those CRWG numbers, and it was one of the things that we contemplated and discussed. Now, what we get to do with the implementation of those, and then I'll pitch the other part of it of INSEPT over to Jamal, is with the CRWG, we will negotiate the implementation of that. The goals will be right now. When you have only 10,000, approximately between 700, 800 at any given moment, as it vacillates every given day, or every day as people retire or certify, is that is a pool for 14,335, and then you add the CIC 14,663. In no way should we be 100% locked in to a pool that has to build. So it will be a phased and rolled in approach, so we don't just shut down the country. What we'll be able to do is we've already started, myself and Jamal actually started doing pre-work on it. Is we looked at, we have a complete breakdown of tower approach, of our combined control facilities approach only, our en route facilities, and looking at the distribution of where the larger gains are and how, as we increase the number of bodies through hiring, track 1 of no experience, and then track 2 of previous experience, as that pool begins to build and the number of CPCs begin to build, we'll phase in the numbers for the facilities. But obviously, we can help direct to facilities that have been hurting for a very long time, that are all around the system, that have been woefully understaffed, and that number is making a very large increase or jump. I was just in Austin, Texas, 2 days ago, and they go from a number of 42 to 60. Obviously, and they're only at 30 right now. They know we have a very long road ahead, but we don't turn on 60 for them right off the go. Through negotiations, we'll walk into that. So that's what our ideas around CRWG would be: is direct where it's needed based on the overall number, but releases will be based off a phased-in approach of how many bodies are in the system. So Jamal, I don't know if you want to talk about some of our ideas with INSEPT, and I'll dive on anything after that.
Well, one of the things or points that Cody made that's well received is people getting to where they want to go, right? So hopefully in June, we'll be rolling out some changes to academy placement, so we can get those, those who are hired going forward will have a better opportunity, both in terminal and en route, to be at least in the region they want to be in. Most likely the facility, city, and state that they want to be in, which should, in a situation such as Cody's, or the 4 through 7 facilities where people are placed, and now 4 through 8, depending on scores, should stabilize some of the need for movement, therefore allowing people like Cody, who have been around for a while, maybe isn't at a place where he wants to be, to move on. That's one of the things, and that wasn't a right of ours. That was setting up a relationship with the agency, coming to them with a solution and saying, here's what we think will fix one of the problems that we have. So getting people where they want to be, so that the movement is not just for that. The movement would then be for career progression or going somewhere else. So that's part of the stabilization. Another big part, Cody, is what things that I continue to talk about: more simulators so we can reduce training time. We are currently at the academy in both terminal and en route. I'm sorry, we just left April 26th. It closed out. We rewrote the academy curriculum for en route and terminal. NACA's first time ever being involved in that, shortening the courses a little bit. But some of the suggestions that were made were to change the weighting and scoring so that we put less emphasis on one simulation or a couple of days of simulation, and more on classroom and aptitude, so we can increase the throughput at the academy. As we hire people, we have to find ways to make them successful. Again, never wanting to lower the bar, understanding the profession, the integrity of the profession, and how much we value it. But we're right now doing trainees a disservice. We have places where people never get to use simulators, or only use simulators once. No other career field we say there's no practice, only the game. So we have to give ourselves the ability to increase those numbers, so that the people that we max hire can actually turn into actual bodies, and a system with more people is a more healthy system that allows you to get where you want to get. But going all the way back to the beginning, what Nick said, a phased approach it has to be done. Otherwise, it would absolutely cripple the INSEP, and we will not sign up for that.
Now, one of the things I just want to mention quickly, and Jamal, my apologies. Did you cover on that about our idea of targeted moves in the level 9 and below facilities of somebody coming out of the academy? And
I did not. Go ahead and cover that, brother.
Yeah, I want to quickly cover that as one of the ideas brought to us, as Jamal said, is going out is our level 4 through 9 facilities, and then talking about our 11s and 12 being more the 10, 11, and 12 being more of the competitive approach. Is if you're wanting to go through a 4 through 9, if you're currently in a 4 through 7, is why not be able to just work with it's that let's say Cody wants to move to Colorado Springs. Then the next person out of the academy goes to Cody's facility. Cody knows that person's here, and we've agreed with the agency in advance. This person's here. When they achieve local control, then Cody has a 6-month release to Colorado Springs. And that the system begins to backfill behind where many people want to move in our 4 through 7s or in 4 through 9s in totality. So that way we can start making more targeted approaches instead of a lottery. And that's a absolutely broken system right now. It's not on the fault of our INSEP team and all our INSEP reps that are out there. But what's happening is we're trying to make a system that is built around for INSEP to movement. Hey, would function if we were well staffed, but you can't fit a round peg in a square hole. You have to start changing your tactics, and that is one of the ones that we would absolutely engage the agency to start doing a more targeted approach and a more competitive in the 10s, 11s, 12s. And then also to get people where they want is bring back swaps and start looking at it of achieving a certain level of certification, and then the other person is released. So the first person moves to the from the higher level or higher staff facility to the lower staff facility. Once they achieve a level of certification for light type facilities, especially like en route, where if you've been en route certified, it's likely going to take you only 4 to 6 months. And the facilities can absorb that. It's ideas like that that have to be explored, or we'll just be waiting for 8 years until it's all healthy again and then say, well, good, here's your system again to move. And in the meantime, there's a lottery. That's not something Jamal and I want to continue right now.
Okay, thanks for the question. We've got a couple back to back here in the chat, and they both actually touch on Abacus. The first one is from Jones. Jones says, can you talk about the implementation of Abacus and what needs to happen for centers to be included in the facility pay level review process?
I'll start this one, Nick, if you don't mind. Well, you have our very own Eddie Delisle on the call, who was part of Abacus and the national validation team. And again, without ever trying to sound flippant, it all starts with education. How do we get here and how do we move beyond it? So in our 2016 CBA, we did have an MVT MOU that is associated with Abacus, with our CBA, and it included Abacus, which is a traffic counting system. In 2018, Eddie was part of that and had it really going in a direction where we were going to see the finish line. We have very sharp people working on Abacus. I would never take anything away from them. Matt Scala is one from your region that's part of it. Very intelligent people. I think what we're missing is a strong LR advocate. If you go back through the history of our union, previous leads on moving the ball forward as it related to traffic counting systems and pay were Phil Barbarello, Dean Jacopelli, people who really understood how to move the ball forward as it related to LR and capitalize on those things that we do as air traffic controllers to get us counted for our pay. We currently, when Eddie went back to the region, he passed the ball to Rich Santa to lead the MVT and to implement Abacus. It still is not implemented. And when Rich became the president, he passed it to Mick Devine. It's still not implemented. So a long way around saying we need a strong LR person to drive the agency to finally making the decision. We can't wait for Abacus to be absolutely perfect when we have facilities that aren't being counted properly. I use the analogy of the iPhone. If we waited for the iPhone 16, we'd have never got the iPhone 1. If you have a system that has been proven 99.9% accurate, you need to lean on the agency to either accept that or in the interim, accept some other method of counting traffic and getting those people properly accounted for. So one of the things we would do is have someone like Eddie re-engage in that leadership role and lead Abacus to where it needs to be. And oh, by the way, just to be clear, Abacus is a traffic counting system that falls under the national validation team. And terminal facilities are affected by this being held up as well. We had between 13 and 16 multipliers that were recommended by the national validation team that were pushed into that MOU with the thought that they would be addressed in a short time frame. 2016 to 2024, they still haven't been addressed. Some of those are things like terrain multipliers for towers, ground complexity multipliers for towers. So there's so many things being held up by this, and the main reason is because we don't have the right people driving the car on it. Eddie's available and could speak to it. I know he might be being shy right now because Eddie's very shy, but you know, we don't have to be the only experts on everything that's part of our style. Eddie's here. Eddie, if you want to unkey and speak to that at all, we'd welcome it.
Eddie, let me find you. There you go. Now you can unmute. He may not be in a place where he can unmute. Oh, there we go. We got him.
No, I got it. I got it now. Sorry, I'm at a kids club thing. It's an indoor jungle gym, so my son can go ham and get some energy out. So I hope the background noise stays as a minimum. So it's when we negotiated the 2016 CBA, the agency's chief negotiator said, I went to the program office and we have the funding, we have the personnel, we can build out, or we can build this traffic counting program. So that's why we agreed to the MOU. In October of 2016, I took over the program to be the lead, found out that he had talked to no one, secured no funding, had no personnel, and nobody knew what to do. So we had to start from scratch. And sometimes when you develop a new program, you have an idea and then you build the program around that idea. Well, we had all the requirements that are built into Appendix A and the MOU that Jamal referenced, and we needed to build into a program. So that became our requirements for the program. And FA personnel in those offices were not used to hearing somebody talk like that. They would say things like, well, maybe we can do it, or maybe we can build that, or maybe that feature needs to go away. And I had to remind them over and over again for the course of 2 years that every single thing that we've agreed to on paper will be in this thing. There's no, like, this is not some end around where you take away things that we bargained for at the table. We are going to move forward on what has been agreed to, regardless of what your personnel expect. So that was a fight getting everything into the program. And then it became a 2-year fight on getting funding for the programs. So as Jamal says, if you look at your history, we have to look at our union's history. If you go back to the NEB meeting minutes from September of 2018, there's a blurb in there by me that says we have secured funding through starting in fiscal year 2020 that will last through the sustainment of the program. So somewhere along the way, that got dropped. I don't know if the pandemic had something to do with it or what. I do know the program offices like to go through and try to chop funding because they all try to steal money from each other's little projects to build their own kingdom. What we need, what I saw with Abacus thus far is it is a very well-developed program. I would never take anything away from the guys who built it. It looks great. But for our facilities that need TCIs, that need to have their FPL or the facility pay level reviewed, like our centers, we need something that counts accurately, something that we can use to validate that count, and something so we can explain our work to the members that are affected by it, either in up or down fashion, and then something that calculates TCIs going forward. I don't know where we can cut, but yes, as Jamal said, we need somebody, it needs national level focus. I used to have to brief Paul and Trish and Dean every other week on the state of Abacus when I was the lead, because the original MOU said it had to get done within a year. And there was just no way to do it. It wasn't possible. The FA didn't have the money allocated. The chief negotiator essentially had lied. But that's where I'd like to see it. I know the facilities are hurting as far as wanting to get their pays looked at, especially the centers, but we can't engage in these sort of fanciful discussion about, well, we'll just upgrade this facility, or we'll just downgrade this facility. Like, it needs to be done right. We are talking about pay. I think we can get there. I know our team and its existing structure can get it done. I would just like to see what can we do to move it. We've heard timelines such as maybe 2028, maybe 2030. I don't know if that seems like a really long time to develop something like this. And I think there's got to be something in the interim. And if there's no way to speed up the program, I believe that Nick and Jamal would be able to competently negotiate what we need to do in the interim to get it done. I have full faith in both of them. If you have any questions about my explanation and you don't want to get into read on this call, you can always call me and text me. I'm sure many of you have my phone number. If not, you'll be able to get it from your back rep. And we can talk about more in the weeds all you want. I don't want to take up too much time. But yes, as Nick, as Jamal said, I'm very involved, very pointed to somebody whose hands such as that.
Thank you, Eddie. Can you guys hear me okay? I wasn't sure if it was my Wi-Fi or Eddie was breaking up. Okay,
No, it was
Nick.
Eddie. He was in the bounce house.
Okay. And then on the other, keeping with the abacus theme, Anita had also asked, Anita Johnson asked, will abacus affect lower level facilities? And if so, how?
Well, until abacus actually rolls out, we will have to, what we'll do is when abacus rolls out, we'll go into a negotiation, right? If your current TCI program, and we're just going to take fictional numbers for easy example, is producing a number between 50 and 150, and that determines what level you're in from a 4 through 12, right? When you break those numbers into different zones, a level 12 zone, a level 11, 10, and so on, is the TCI that comes out from an abacus will produce a new range and set of numbers. They won't be the same as today. Plus, they'll incorporate the terminal multipliers that Jamal mentioned that have been sat out there and not been able to be implemented because, as Eddie was saying, that there has been a failed implementation by, it's not the team, by our leadership to get it across the finish line, and the failure to do something in the interim if they know there's going to be a date existing like 2030. It is egregious to think that somebody could go their career and never be paid properly. We should be acting upon that either legislatively through a grievance or through our own media and making a push on those very things. And we can't sit there and wait for, as Jamal said, that perfect system. So once those negotiations happen on what those new breakpoints would be, that's where they will impact, every facility. It won't just be lower level. And what we expect to see, and where Jamal and I really want to weigh in with negotiations, either in term or through an MOU, midterm bargaining, we want to weigh in our traffic being captured more in the realm of 2024, 2025 standards. We have so many facilities that are out there right now moving just as many people as they ever had, but they're bigger airframes, still providing the same GDP with a less of a carbon footprint, in the gross domestic product, and bringing, commerce to the community. However, we're somehow getting downgraded and being paid less for moving the American economy. That has to change. That has to address. And Jamal and I want and will engage in updating what our TCI standards are, and that you are compensated appropriately for the work that's being done.
Thanks, Nick. And for those following in the chat, I see that Eddie did a reply to Anita's as well with some additional stuff there. So please don't hesitate to catch up there. All right, we've got another hand up, but it just says iPhone 256. So no name associated yet, but I'm sure iPhone 256 will unmute and let us know who that is.
Hey, sorry about that. This is Matt Scala. I was going to ask a different question before the abacus stuff started up, but happy to talk about that a little bit too. I mean, Eddie brought up a good point about how we're going to get everything that's in this contract that we negotiated for. Well, we also have to weigh that against the timeline, and we have we have programmers that are going as fast as they can, essentially, and they have to figure out our problems, and we have to be able to translate what we mean into something that programmers understand. So, but that's just a little commentary there, and that's kind of what's making this thing take a little while. Is that it's a little while. It's taking a long time. It's taking too long, but it's just we've negotiated for some pretty complex things, and they're tough to do. But I can put my number in the chat if anybody wants to give me a text. We can talk about abacus. But in any case, I wanted to ask about Well, first of all, it was awesome to see you guys last week in NACA, Washington. But I wanted to ask about the response to the fatigue memo. What was the thought process in that? And would you change anything now since that came out?
In our response to the fatigue MOU?
Yes, in your response, the one that you guys sent out via email.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't. I'll speak for the we. We wouldn't change anything about it because what it was, and we were very clear in there. We expect NACA to lean in and be able to push this off and push back and have our rights accounted for. What it is a clear indication that our rights were violated. And in my time as a NACA member, going back to 2007 up to now, other than the White Book, there's been no imposition from the agency. We went into a world of collaboration and we have shown them the virtues of collaboration, protected the agency lots of times from their own misgivings, and they have reciprocated that by being collaborative partners. In this case, there was a failure. We have a new administrator who needs to be trained, for lack of better words, and I mean no disrespect to the administrator. That's a Senate confirmed position, a very important position. But he needs to be met by his counterpart to say, when we go out together. And that was not done. And if it was done, the administrator determined, then I don't care about that relationship. Either way, it signals to NACA members that there's a change. We went through the BWS negotiations of 2023, rolling into 2024, and saw a change in the way that the agency was handling us. We saw the administrator do two different mail drops, if you will, on Fridays to say, this is where the agency's going. We had an opportunity to stop it when enhanced CTI programs were announced, and no collaborative discussion regarding that. Then when you have this fatigue, which would have affected every controller that we have, and for the agency to do it unilaterally, that does reflect on our relationship. And to me, that reflects on our president and the lack of engagement with his counterpart. Nick?
Listen, all that we're doing is repeating, but it shows the level of trust, the level of engagement that is needed in those positions, because otherwise we find ourselves on our heels and trying to find a way to play catch up. As Jamal and I said, there would be a world where we know that our team will get to work and ultimately find a way to dig out and have the union presence in it. But again, the mere fact of our team having to fight it off is a clear indicator of the times, where we're going, and for Jamal and I and all those that are voting, that we are not going in a direction. The agency and the FA and the administrator are now looking at us not as somebody to engage before about the problem and for a solution. It's we'll see what you say after we've determined the path already, and that's not something that NACA should be that will stand for in any way, shape, and form.
Yeah, having been part of the CBA negotiations, we have a definition of collaboration, and they did anything but collaborate on that. We've held that up. We've held this agency up. We've made them look good time and time again. And in this instance, they put us behind the 8 ball. If something were to happen related to fatigue, they get to now say, we tried to tell them they need this with no efforts to collaborate. We put together a team after the fact. All we're doing is playing catch up. That's not who we've been since Paul Rinaldi was the president. That's who we are right now, and that's not serving our membership. We need to be the union that they know they come to. We provide solutions, we work together, and then we tell our membership and this agency in the country, in this case, this is where we're going, because fatigue is real. It does need to be addressed. Our members are being worn into the ground, but that's not what he said. He said unilaterally, I'm making a decision effective in 90 days. That's not how we work.
I understand that. My chief piece of concern was that we were going to go to the press. We were going to go to members of Congress, flex our legislative muscle for it. And I think that, I don't know, that seems to me like we're potentially opening ourselves up to criticism and even losses when you position yourself as being against fatigue mitigation, against safety. That battle gets put into the press, and we are at risk of losing credibility then. So that was what I thought about that, and I think that you know, you're right. You do have to train the administrator. As funny as that sounds, and I think that this is just a piece of it. We're going to have trainees that have bad days, and this is one of them. But yeah, I think that's all I got.
Appreciate you always, man. And didn't know you were on the call. Still gave you a positive shout out. So you see,
I heard that. I very much
same, no
appreciate
matter
it.
who's looking, right?
Yeah. See, I very much appreciate that, and I always think, you and I go way back, and I really appreciate your friendship.
Absolutely, sir.
Thanks for talking to us at NACA Washington too. It was great always catching up with you. And just so everybody's clear, great question there at the end that kind of Matt was talking about was the world of Jamal and I were in no way opposed to being a part of the solution for fatigue. That when the administrator decided he had the solution without us, that's the issue. Fatigue is absolutely something we should be engaged in, because we talk about short-term fatigue in between shifts. We should be talking about long-term fatigue and what it's doing, how the OT is absolutely destroying everybody. And yes, what does it look like for time between shifts? What should it be? But it's not going to be, because a unilateral report was produced and we weren't going to be at the table engaged in figuring out how we need to start implementing phased plans to protect our overall health and well-being. So we are ready, and we will not fight off our chances at addressing fatigue in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we aren't Johnny come lately to this subject. You can look at on our website, as we talk about staffing, we talk about staffing from the perspective of not only serving the American public, but serving our own people. We're killing ourselves for this job. We're literally taking years off of our lives because of our schedules, because of being woefully understaffed. So this isn't new to us. We didn't try to use it as a talking point. It was an opportunity. We are in a race for these positions. It was an opportunity to display to our membership, these things are happening. We take no joy in any of this. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to have to make a decision as to who should be the president and executive vice president, and just hoping that things get better in the second term when you have evidence that things are not going well in this current term doesn't make sense to me. So we want to convey that to our membership. But by no means do we think that fatigue isn't an issue. It's not only an issue, it's a priority for us to address.
Thanks, guys. And thanks, Matt, also known as iPhone 256. Okay, I fibbed earlier when I said I was going to put my glasses on because I don't have them with me, but I will do my best here. This is a little bit of a long question, so buckle in. It's from Nick. Nick says, I'm at MWH, Grant County International, a level 6 up-down. This is my first and only FA facility. My concern is greatly aligned with Cody's. Our CRWG number is 21. We're currently at 12 CPCs. We are currently on 5-day work weeks with 1-to-1 overtime. 21 CPCs here would be a mess with an absurdly low time on position. Seems like a gross waste of resources when there are facilities that are struggling on a daily basis. I've been here 8 years, averaging 1 CPC per year. This CRWG number seems like it's wildly inflated and life sentences to the controllers at my facility. Are the CRWG numbers still able to be adjusted / collaborated on?
No, that's I appreciate it. Great chance to expound on our answer from earlier. When we talk about a phase in implementation, it's not until there's the 14,000 bodies in the system that we would be working up towards that 21 number. I don't know at MWH. We could review it with anyone at MWH and take a look at the way that we did the CRWG was a completely different way that it was done originally. It seemed to bring in alignment, many of ours, but there's going to be no mathematical equation that nails everything at 100%. Almost kind of like the abacus discussion. At a point, you make a decision and you're absolutely right. We should ensure that there is a review process. When it was originally put forward, that was our a goal and intent, and what Jamal and I will immediately engage the agency on is we think that there should be approximately an 18 to 24 month process. And it shouldn't just be a review it when we get these numbers caught up. It should take a prospective look at at everything, and not just a view of the past and what happened. Because if we forever base our staffing on what did happen, we'll never be in front of the new sectors that are opening in your area, the new flight school that came in, or the new air carriers, or the ones that left, and you no longer need those bodies. And like you said, can go somewhere else. So you won't go to 21 overnight. And again, if that number is incorrect, we should have a review process. We can collaboratively work on that. But one of the things that I want to mention, while that may feel like a lot of bodies in some facilities, and I'm not, again, saying this is not just about the 21 at Grant County. This is for everybody, and just wrapping your mind around this. We have been so short-staffed for over a decade now. We operate with less controllers that were fired during the PATCO strike in 1981. And we are here today with approximately 10,700 CPCs. We have been conditioned in many of our facilities to work with bare bones, not be able to split positions when we need them. Well, I remember at Fort Worth Center when I first got there, and we're running more traffic than we ever have there, you would not only have an R side, a D side, and quite often a handoff come in as an extra set of eyes during our major pushes. We're down to just an R side. We've not only lost the handoff as an extra set of eyes, we lost the D side in most cases as well, or there's nobody on break. And we're skipping out on so many of the things, especially in the low-level facilities, when it comes to having CPCs conduct the training in simulators. We're killing staffing, or we're just not doing the training because we don't have enough bodies. Recurrent training is not as robust. A refresher training is quite often skipped. Our local safety councils don't meet as often. These were all things that we looked at when we did the CRWG, and I think a big part of this is for those who have been hired, and recently, it will feel like a lot of bodies. But when everybody else gets to start doing things, or somebody from your building can actually be selected to go out and do a project for a few weeks or a few days, and it not absolutely devastate the facility, that's where we as a union can start progressing. Because until that time, the agency is the one that benefits from us being low staffed. Plug in, work, don't complain. And at the end of the day, guess what? We still got the job done. And that's on our backs. And that's something that we want to make sure these CRWG numbers are implemented correctly, where you're not locked down, you can still move. It's a slow, methodical move towards that number. And again, if that number is not correct, let's absolutely change it.
Thanks, Nick. Okay. Again, currently don't have hands up nor questions in the chat, but that's okay. Sometimes it gets to where it needs to get to.
But Aaron, I think Joel just joined, and I don't know if he can speak to it, but I know that there's all the consternation about the executive orders, and I would hate to have this large of a group together and not even address that, right? I think Nick made it very clear that our desire as a team, and our team, when you see team NDJH, it's not just us two. We have a large team that includes other RVPs, ARVPs, members at large. We don't try to make decisions in a vacuum. But information is power, and having that information displayed to our membership, it doesn't always have to come from us. So I don't know if Joel is available, but just a short exercise of what the executive orders actually do. And under the backdrop that we absolutely want to negotiate a CBA, but we have to be honest with our membership about what everything looks like with no gray and with pure clarity. So Joe, are you available to do that?
Yeah, I can talk real quick about those. I mean, ideally, the EO brief is supposed to be about an hour to an hour and a half. That way you get all the nuance and all the context, because the EOs aren't a punchline and they're not a campaign tactic. They're a thing that actually existed, a thing that occurred in 2020 under the previous administration, and a thing that from the legislative briefing that we got 2 weeks ago, and for those who went to NAC in Washington, you realize the political landscape is the administration that implemented the first time is likely to win as it stands today and has already said, if you go look at their website, that they intend on reissuing them again. So when it comes to executive orders, just first and foremost, because I know they're being used, at least for the campaign purposes, as a wedge to say some people want to open the contract to get to a bunch of money and others don't want to get to anything, which is the furthest thing from the truth. I have a wife that stays at home and I've got 4 kids. I will push everybody in this call out of the way to get a pay raise as soon as the opportunity exists. But first, let's talk about the executive orders. The biggest thing with the executive orders was the permissive subjects of bargaining are illegal. So that would take 77 articles out of our current CBA, which has 125 articles, and take them down to 48 articles. The first contract NACA had after we became a union in 1989, that first contract had 73 articles. So we go back to a point in time that is below where we started as an organization. We sit down at the table to start negotiating with 77 articles off the table for discussion because permissives are illegal. But we're to believe that in the landscape where we're taking away all permissive subjects of bargaining, that suddenly there's an opportunity to get 30% pay raises, which is the furthest thing from the truth. Anybody who understands this job, understands what being a federal employee is, knows that the political landscape plays a major factor into what we can get at the negotiating table and what we can't get at the negotiating table. So if the EOs are in place, which at this point it looks like, in my opinion, it is our responsibility to protect the box. That is the number one job of a union rep, is to protect the box. When you know a threat is imminent and a threat is in front of you, and it is imminent and it is in front of us. Ignoring those is acting if they don't exist when you know they existed and they know they occurred and they know they impacted plenty of federal sector unions, EPA, the education, and the VA. Just to start, it happened, they existed, and they impacted all of those federal unions. To act like they don't exist and to willfully ignore them, to me, is negligent. That should be an impeachable offense, to know you have a threat to this organization and a threat to this union, and you choose to ignore it and act like they don't exist and not protect what we've acquired over 30 years for an opportunity to go chase something that doesn't even exist at that moment in time. So I don't know if you wanted me to cover a little more, Jamal, but that's my take on the EOs.
I think that was great, brother. And I just, to add, and I'll be quickly and give it to you, Nick, is, pay continuously comes up. We would love to not have to be the adults in the room and tell all the elements, because it's been somehow spun that we don't want to get a pay raise. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are air traffic controllers. Our pay is associated with air traffic control pay increases. But not just that, just the nature of being a union rep, seeing some of our members at our lower level facilities suffer, seeing some of the shine come off of the profession, because people do value their wage, and a lot of people place value on their individual value is associated with their wage. We want those wages to go up, without a doubt. Let's that be very clear to everyone. We want to see pay increase. We talked about it earlier. Collective bargaining is not the only way to increase pay. Our major pay raises in the history of this union have been through legislation. And we'll have an opportunity before 2026 to see what the administration, no matter which one it is, wants to do as it relates to pay. Because when we get in those offices, we'll hit the ground running, slide MOUs across the table to say, let's look at increasing pay these ways. So Nick, over to you, brother. Sorry about that.
Oh, first of all, Joel, thank you for diving in. And we're catching Eddie off guard. We're catching Joel off guard. And here's the beauty of it. When it's not made up and you don't have to go and set up a camera and read a script, this is the beauty of education and having open discussions as a union. That is what we want to bring back to this union, and to be able to be a trusted conversation, not where it's divisive and we find out the key word to try to make you look bad and say, aha, here's why Nick and Jamal are great and all of you aren't. It is how do we learn from one another, and how do we build off of that connection? How do we build off of those ideas? And here's a couple of those ideas, as Jamal was saying. One, as he mentioned, we want to find any and every way to increase pay. Term negotiation, MOU, whatever those are going to be. And as the landscape changes, do not be fooled. That's not the goal and the intent. So let's talk about a couple of those ways. Number one is, as we keep doing just percentage raises of bands, one, you bump up against the cap. something that have to be addressed in a long-term plan. Will need to look at Series 2 employees. Can we ever move to Series 1 employees? What would that look like and how will we get there? The other thing is that we have to reset those bands, because when you take a 12 and you just keep moving it by percentage, it will forever widen the gap between a 12 and a 4. We have to reset those bands and bring some reality to it, especially as the economy has changed. We have controllers in Beaumont, Texas, when I just visited, that when they CPC, they are making around $65,000 annually at rest of US in a CPC status. That wage at Beaumont and close to Houston, that gets a 44% locality, no longer serves them, and they're looking for other jobs. And they're honestly looking for ways to move that we already discussed, because everybody's seeking some way to overcome these economic times. We need to reset those bands. We need to look at then how do you move through those bands and increase our longevity raises, which are usually your June 1.6. We want to increase that. And then looking at using our times right now of things, new ideas like longevity bonuses. If you're going to be the expert at a facility, you're either locked in because you can't move right now. There's no opportunity to move, or you just found the facility that you love. We should be looking at working with the agency to have benchmarks. If I'm a CPC for 5 consecutive years, I'm at a different value now. And here's a bonus, a 2% your pay to you. And at 10 years, that increases even more, 15, 20, 25, and I think you get the point. Those are things that ways for us to put money in our members' pockets to deal with the times as you move through raises. Also starting to use certifications like CIC and move you through the band when you get your CIC certification. 10% is great, but we're spending more time CIC than ever while we're short-staffed because they don't have enough people, air traffic controllers, to even promote to the agency's rates. So you know what? If we're going to be spending all the time on the CIC, then start moving our pay because of it. How about pushing us up a 3% when we become CIC certified, and then our raises capitalize on that from there? Again, affecting your overall movement through the band. Saturday pay, the introduction of negotiating the different premium for that. It's not just a world where Sunday exists anymore. We have people that we're competing against for the retainment, to retain and recruit in these jobs that are sitting at home 5 days a week. We should be paid for the weekends that we're there at the facility on Saturdays and Sundays, in a tiered overtime system, engaging in that. Or start putting it towards our high 3. If we're going to spend this many hours in the facilities, then we must start understanding that you are actually increasing how much it costs for me to live. When I have to hire somebody that cuts my grass, when I have to hire somebody that comes and cleans our house, because I'm only there a few hours a week to rest and get back to work. So those are just a few of the ideas that we want to make sure that that we've heard from the members. That again, just not Nick and Jamal's ideas, but ways that we know that we can go in and start a negotiation with the agency.
Yeah, and we've seen downgrades at a record rate. I believe, when we signed the slate book, we had about 8 level 4s. We now have 20. Who's overseeing that project? I'll let you guess. Who's NACA's representative on that? It's the same person who has a T-shirt that says "Fix my pay, fix my effing pay." The truth is, you have to be good at the job you currently do to ask for more responsibilities. We're passionate about increasing pay. Please do not let anyone else shape the narrative about how we feel about pay. Nothing could be further from the truth. The only income in my family is an air traffic control income. The only income in Nick's family is an air traffic control income. I worked at Walgreens before this. The rest of my life, I've been an air traffic controller. I want to see air traffic controllers paid well. I want this profession to have the prestige that it's always had. The members are heard loud and clear, but it's not just something you get to yell, pound the table, and say, do it, and it gets done. If so, Mick and Rich should have gotten it done in their current term. And by the way, Mick's been on the National Executive Board since 2018, and the only raises we've gotten during that time have been associated with the slate book that we came up with in 2016. So while he bashes that contract and says it doesn't serve the members, he's never proposed anything else. None of them have.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Joel, for speaking on the executive orders. And I want to say thanks to Brittany, who posted the executive orders in the chat. They're available there for download. Please do so. Read them. educate yourself. Okay, let's go over to our brother Chris Hastings.
Hey, Nick and Jamal, appreciate you guys doing this. I know that I've asked this a couple of times, but I'm going to ask it again. Mental health is huge in our industry right now. There are so many barriers to getting the kind of help that we deserve. In the FAA reauth bill, there's, I think it's section 328, they're talking about establishing a work group. Doesn't look like it would include anyone from the workforce, but how are you guys going to advance mental health within our profession, within our industry, and remove the barriers that controllers face with just talking about life with someone that's licensed to actually help them?
Well, you want me to kick this one off, or you want to start, my man?
You got it, brother. Absolutely.
Chris, first of all, thank you for not only sharing your story with Jamal and I, but being such a champion for mental health. It's going to take leaders that are willing to actually talk about this topic and not just use it as a moment to pass by. If those who don't know me, this has been something near and dear to my heart as well. My mom died of suicide when I was 10 years old. My father has had mental health issues as he's got older, and his wife of 30 years, my stepmother, ended up passing away from cancer. And I've seen this not only affect my life and so many others that you open and share stories with that are out there. Number one is it cannot just be an awareness campaign anymore. I at one time also believed awareness would be a huge part of this conversation. One thing I haven't seen it done is talked about or any action taken on it, since there was an attempt at one time when in the Southwest region, we were helping kick off, and then we rolled it out nationally, the I'm Here For You campaign. But what we need now is actual prevention. That comes in the form of engaging not only in, like you said, Chris, in any and every forum that we can to be part of the conversation, the solution, but also let's start engaging in bargaining. Let's make it real. When we go and we have the ability, or we will have the ability to negotiate through MOU or again, in a term negotiation, whatever that field actually looks like, is let's propose 1 hour per pay period for our controllers if they want as an option and they schedule it in advance to get some level of counseling through the EAP. Let's just start building in the chance and opportunity for our members to take that. And then also, thank you, Chris, for educating us on the costs that are associated with the SSRI program. I mean, it is a advance forward that we have the ability for controllers to take certain medications and still control airplanes. But now we are shouldering the burden for tens of thousands of dollars in order to hold and maintain our own job, where we're all saying we're not compensated appropriately. That is something that must change as well. If the agency is at a staffing shortage, we have to start investing in their time to be able to recover through not just fatigue, but actual mental health and well-being, and not putting more burden on them just to remain in this career field. People are leaving this career field for one reason or the other, and that is a huge one. People are tired of having to hide that they have an issue in order to be an air traffic controller. Let's break it open. Leaders need to lead and discuss it and find solutions for it. And that'd be just where the tip of the iceberg where we begin, Chris. And I look forward to working with you and any leader that wants to be part of this topic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. I'll circle back real quick just to mention, reference the grassroots link. I've already seen a couple emails, people filling that out. Thank you. Just to give some dates, I got a question through text about some dates. Ballots will be mailed out June 3rd. So we need to make sure the members' addresses are up to date prior to that. Ballots must be received to the repository by July 30th, and I believe it's like 9 a.m. Eastern, when they are then brought over and counted by our National Election Committee. So those are the key dates right now. Again, if you would like to help make sure we get the vote out, please click the link. And I believe we got another question from the chat. So
Aaron, could I speak to something real quick? Because I did see my good friend Matthew Scala as a retort to what I said, say that Mick doesn't set the break points or the buffers. He doesn't. And this is what we talk about, thinking that you're only bound by the collective bargaining agreement. In 2012, I believe, when Count Ops came on, there was no CBA that opened up. Phil Barbarello, because he is an LR legend, went and negotiated that we adjust the breakpoints 9% down to ensure that we didn't have a lot of downgrades, right? In 2014 and 2013, when myself and Chris Riddle of Charlotte Tower implemented non-intersecting convergent runways, we immediately said that the buffer needed to, or the breakpoint needed to be changed. I'm sorry, the multiplier needed to be adjusted for 148 some odd facilities to ensure that their traffic count was done accurately. When you only want to bash a collective bargaining agreement and you don't know what a collective bargaining agreement does, it sets the table. That's the lowest. We can always increase. When you have people that understand history, that are versed in it, and not just looking to take pot shots at what already exists, that's how you move the ball forward. So if you're bound by what's in the CBA and the only time you think you can improve, then you shouldn't be asking to be in any of those positions. I love my brother Matt. He's very intelligent, but he's wrong on this issue. And I wanted to make that very clear, that I'm not saying he set the breakpoints and the buffers. I'm saying he hasn't looked to see that there's a problem, and in his position that he needs to address that problem.
Thanks, Jamal. Let's go over to Amy Sizemore. Hi, Amy. There we go.
I can't figure out how to turn on my phone, so I'll just, or on my camera, so I'll just start with this. So, I hear a lot, there's a constant background noise about how collaboration is a weakness and that more traditional negotiation is more desirable. Can you speak to this and the current, do you agree with this? What's your thoughts on collaboration versus traditional?
I'll start with it. When you look at Article 114 of our contract and you realize, and we teach in rep training, every single representative, the words that are in there. And it's not just this, we work together and play nice mentality. It is an actual ability to engage in any and every conversation or idea before a decision is implemented by the agency, and that you have that discussion with your counterpart and you actually display it. That is what will help further in the understanding of what collaboration truly is. Our members are so used to collaboration when there is such a thing as traditional or something imposed on us like the fatigue MOU. I'm glad to see the uproar. I'm glad to see our members say that is absolutely abysmal. And why would the agency do that? It's exactly what we should be happening, that we go out and attack anytime the agency is going to move without us, because our contract is extremely clear that this will be prior to a decision being made, a genuine effort and having a discussion prior to the decision. So it's educating it, also displaying it. Do not think it's a weakness, but it's a weakness when you don't know your rights and rules. And then you just lean on everyone else to go out and actually execute the issues. When we have a president that goes out and talks to everyone and then makes individual promises, and then they can't go collaborate or even be traditional on those, goes to show you that now they become empty words. And that's how our members start reacting to collaboration, because they're just something that didn't produce any results, even though my union, right? Because that's what the president's looked at, is my union said I was going to get this thing. And that to me is one of the things that must change the most, is our union can't be looked at anymore as somebody who's just, or something that's just giving us things. It's what are we doing and how are we going to get there? Do we have an actual purpose and where are we going? And I want to be a part of that. And here's my purpose in my way. I can help us get to that goal. That's how a union moves together and doesn't just look back and say, well, since I didn't get anything, this collaboration thing must be broken. So Jamal?
Yeah, I would add that, give some examples. And Amy, you were just part of it. You went down to the academy. You worked on the curriculum for en route. That's not a right of ours. We don't represent people who are not yet part of our bargaining unit, but they affect us. So we were able to have conversations and wedge ourselves in that. The ATSA exam that's being worked on, Seattle was one of the areas. So you'll have 15 SMEs from your area helping to write the entrance exam for air traffic controllers. Again, not part of our rights, things done through collaboration. Placement of AGs, not one of our rights, things done through collaboration. So it's all a matter of being able to adjust things such as that and expound on our rights, that collaboration is a strength. We always have traditional means in our back pocket because that's who we are, unless they're taken away through executive orders. So traditional means of negotiating are long, arduous, and typically means something's failed. Collaboration is a benefit to each and every one of our members.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Did you have a follow-up, Amy? I'm sorry, it sounded like I might have cut you off.
I think she said thank you and
Okay.
and muted. Thank you, Amy, for being here and always your leadership.
So I got to say how impressed I am with this post in the chat, because it comes all the way from the Philippines, where Gary Beal, the fact rep of Denver, is engaging from the Philippines. So let's read Gary's comment. Gary Beal here from Denver Tower. Sorry if this has already been asked, but I'm currently here in the Philippines. This might be more of a comment than a question. We have people that seem like they are willing to make promises and say anything to get elected. I worry for the future of our union when those promises are inevitably broken. That was Gary's comment. Thought I'd lay it out there for you guys to touch on.
I'll be quick. I'll say, Gary, if you think we do that, please call us on it. It's not who we are. If we were, I don't think people would be identifying us as the guys who want to extend the CBA, right? We've said it several times. You have to be honest with the membership. People say to me, don't even say what I'm about to say now. I would rather lose than lie to you. When you lie, lies beget lies, and you got to continue and continue and continue to remember what you said you were going to do. The truth is always the best way. That's all we aspire to do, is tell people the truth and work our asses off for this union. So if you ever see me in a position such as that, call me on it and let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I'll add. First of all, that just goes to show you the love and passion that's out there for Gary to dial in for the Philippines and for our union. And Gary, thank you for saying what you said, and you're absolutely right. When somebody, and this was a point that I made to Rich when he was talking about, there's 5-center upgrade, and that entire false narrative was breaking loose, and it was the NEV's fault because they didn't have an appetite for it. Inside of that, one of the things that spoke directly to in the NEB meeting that was in front of everyone said, not only were we looking to find any way to ensure that people were paid correctly, but to put out false narratives and to put out promises of things you haven't done, you haven't signed an MOU, you haven't engaged in bargaining, you've just had discussions, and then to put them out into the ethos with nothing to back it up will forever divide our union. And that's what's happening through the election. Hell, if it was just promises, and I know, Jamal said, hey, make sure that we clear this part up, is if it's just promises, then Jamal and I promise you 10% more than everyone else. That's the ridiculousness behind it. If that sounds ridiculous to you, then judge the persons that are saying the hopes and promises. We're here to be honest about it. We have ideas. You have ideas. Our charge is to follow the Constitution, put the teams together, have a level of credibility, because for our union, credibility is everything. And when you cash in on your credibility and the president and executive vice president can't clear the obstacles ahead, because like you said, not only is it dividing our union, it's going to hurt the membership. And ultimately, when our membership divides, because you have broken promises and you put out these dreams, who really is the one that benefits from that? The agency, management. They are looking for any way for us to be divided on a large scale. so they can break collaboration and not affect all the changes that Jamal just said. We fight for our rights and seats at the table in every way, shape, and form, and we weaken every single time that somebody out there tells the lies and wants us to divide. That has to be called out, and it has to change. It doesn't mean we can't disagree, but it cannot be intentional just to win a seat.
Thanks, guys. Matt, I know you've been posting some things in the chat, and that's perfectly fine, but they're not really phrased as questions, so I don't want to be brokering like a third-party conversation. By all means, brother, please just put your hand back up. I'm happy to unmute you if that's not, or we can certainly. There you are, brother. That makes it so much easier.
Nah, I'm muted.
You're still unmuted. You didn't unmute, Matt.
No, I hit it twice, I guess, or,
All good.
or something. Anyhow, yeah, the NVT administers Appendix A, which means that we don't have any authority to change any of the terms of it. If a facility meets the conditions for an upgrade, we review them, we get upgraded. If they meet the conditions for a downgrade, they get downgraded. We had more downgrades in part because of that number of 9%, which I only have tertiary knowledge of. I've heard this story from other people, but that was that should have been a much bigger number. They should have changed the breakpoints and buffers much lower, and we had something like 100 downgrades after that. Yeah, just comment on the context of that, and I don't think there's anything fairly that we could say that anybody in that role would have been able to do differently. And there's other members on the call with NVT experience. If they think that's not true, they can absolutely speak up.
Yeah,
and
thanks,
that's it
man.
for me.
Thanks, brother. I mean, that's
You got it.
that's absolutely your opinion on it, and that's awesome, right? If I were saying that we're bound by the limitations of not being able to have any effects on AG placement because nowhere in the contract it says we can, then we wouldn't have changes that we have coming, right? If we were to say that in 2014, non-intersecting convergent runways are still converging runways and not intersecting, we wouldn't have got the higher multiplier for 148 or so facilities. If Phil didn't have the foresight, which you say it wasn't high enough, if he didn't have the foresight to do that, there was nowhere in the CBA that said that they had to adjust the breakpoints. What I'm telling you is that people that want to be in these positions don't just get to read the contract and bound themselves exclusively to that. When you serve members, you have to think higher, broader, and greater. That's what I do. That's what Nick does. That's what anybody that wants to be in these positions should do. So when it says future adjustments to the evaluation criteria, that's written in there. A statement of coverage is written in Appendix A, and it does give more flexibility than you're leading on to if you have the ingenuity to take those words off that paper and make them something for us. If we're getting downgraded at a record rate, clearly it's not serving us properly because we're working harder than we ever have before. So I wish you would look and expound your mind a little greater and say, what can we do for our membership? Not what are we limited by words that exist on paper. That's my spiel.
So the change that Phil negotiated was spurred by an event. It wasn't, just because we decided we weren't being paid enough. It was count ups.
I think downgrades are events, right? So look, I don't want to turn this into. I'll call you. I'll call you after the call.
Yeah, we can talk.
And I absolutely love that despite your opposition to our candidacy, you come to all of the visits, all of the town halls. We love having you. It wouldn't be fun if it was just everyone saying they agree with us. So I know what I know, and I know who I am. I know what I bring to this union. I know what I will continue to bring to the union. And it's not sitting on my hands saying the contract won't allow me to protect anything. Now, I'm not saying you said that. That was a statement, not for you to retort.
Right. Okay. Have a good night.
You too.
Matt, always appreciate it. And listen, your level of expertise is appreciated as well. And I think that's what Jamal and I are pushing towards. I'll give you one more brief example that's not in the NBT world. Jamal and I were put on a work group with Dean and a few others, Deon Capelli, our chief of staff, who was also our chief negotiator for the slate book. And when the agency was going to change their entire system into 3 service areas, they said no change. We took that and took their no change, and that all of our rights are still our rights, and it's no impact to the contract. We started out, it was probably a 35 section MOU proposal of looking at it differently in ways that it had never been looked at before, because we combed through and did our homework of how can we change this given the circumstances that the agency wants to make a change that they believe has no impact to us. Today, our Article 45 rights are expanded in that because of that MOU, where you no longer just have to do your facility or a commuting area, that they have to look for duties for you in the entire district without travel. That's when you get and see there is a different level to this game when you have leaders who are willing to find creative ways, no matter what the scenario, to change the pace. And that's one chess move. And those just keep building on each other. So that's something that's tangible. It's written down as well, that you can see that we have our name.
Thanks, guys. Funny follow-up from Gary. He said he appreciated the responses. He loves everybody, and he's got to get off the call before his girlfriend kills him. So we can't have that on our hands, but we shared Gary's sentiments. We've got a question from Megan. Megan Nowak from Denver Center. Denver Center's slated to see a large increase in their target staffing numbers if CRWG language passes with the FAA reauthorization. How do you foresee these large increases to be implemented? She said, "Thank you for putting this all together. It's great to hear from you guys."
Yeah, I want to give this justice if there's new people on the call again, but it will come through a phased implementation for any size of facility. We'll look at what the percentage of changes, how many bodies it will take, and it's not going to be a turn on the switch overnight type of situation. As more bodies come into the system through the hiring processes, we will systematically increase the numbers. However, we'll look at directing, and this has to happen through a negotiation, Megan, with the agency. But the agency and the union, when we first developed the CRWG, we made it clear that neither party wants to see this entire place go into lockdown. We're already working as short-staffed as we are. We're only going to systematically increase and improve. That's the goal, unless we have the next zombie apocalypse that we'll deal with it all together. But as the bodies come into the system, we'll incrementally raise those numbers so people are still able to get out. But we'll also direct to the facilities that have been grossly understaffed for so long. So if you had a facility, it will use, it's I think North Las Vegas. Their number doubles from like 11 to 22. Well, we're not going to just pour 11 bodies in there overnight, but we'll start putting more emphasis on bodies going there as we work up from 11 to 22 on their CPC number. And that will come from a long-term plan and a long-term phase-in approach that will be many years in the making.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, we have one from Phil Stubbs. I'm at a level 5 up-down, my first and only facility of 10 years. We've released one person through the NCEPT. We now hear that some academy grads are going to be offered certain level 8s. Half of my facility would jump at the chance to be at a level 8. What do you say to facilities like mine that feel like they are being leapfrogged by an academy grad?
Yeah, Phil, thanks, brother. One of the things this has been a consideration for a while, and we did continuously take that into account. This is going to affect those that we already have in the pipeline that haven't had an opportunity to go to a level 8. We kept the bar high. Those that go to a level 8 will have to score a 90 or above. That only accounts for about 13% of the academy grads. What we wanted to do, because we saw a problem in our level 8s and 9s in particular, not being well staffed and having a long time to certification. But one of the other things that we're going to do associated with that is start doing 100% +1 for those level 7s and below, so that that pipeline does turn over, so that you're not one in, one out, so that you continuously have more people coming into your facility. Another thing that we've asked and is documented, have emails to share. Nick and I have proposed to Mick and Brian Schallenberger, who are our national NCEP reps, to start looking at an NCEP where we start with level 8s and below. Start with your level 8s and below and see who wants to actually go to a level 8. One of the things that we continuously hear as we travel, hey, I wanted to go to the Chicago area. I thought I was better served to go to Midway, but O'Hare always selects first, so I had to pick O'Hare. I want to go to the LA Basin or Los Angeles area. I really wanted to go to Orange County, SNA, but I had to pick the LAX because it always goes first. So long story short is we have to look at creative ways to adjust, get people to move where they want to move. But we did take into account what you said. There are lots of people at 5s that would love to go to 8s. So how do we get them that opportunity is overstaff their facilities or staff their facilities above 100% so that they can move more readily available.
Yeah, the other component of that is that we want to change the face of, engage the agency in bargaining on INCEPT and start doing targeted approaches for that very way. If you want to go to a level 9 or below facility and you're from a level 4 through 7, then we should be creating those opportunities and saying, okay, instead of placing somebody at, they pick, any level 6 facility that may be up, well, why don't we just target behind you so then you can be released to go to that level 8. And when they achieve a certain level of certification, then your release date goes in effect so you can move there. We have to start thinking outside the box of an every 3-month lottery until the system somehow, until we eventually crawl out of this staffing crisis. We got to change with the times, doing a targeted approach like that, and then doing the more competitive approaches for our 10, 11, and 12 is something we're interested in. Increasing the vacancies and throughput in our 8s and 9s up to 125%. Jamal and I have actually referred to as a retention and throughput, is so that way those facilities can stay staffed and released with a longer training time. We would engage the agency in that. And then also we have to look at the distribution of the bodies out of the academy and start to make that more equitable for our up-down facilities as well as our towers. When we have facilities that can climb quickly because of percentage, they only have 11 people, and they certify one, release one, and then they drop back down and get a body out of the academy, certify one, release one, before one level 5 up-down who takes a year and a half to train. Well, they both only get one body, but one of them will be released in, somebody will release from the tower in 4 to 6 months, and the up-down in a year and a half, they'll finally have somebody that leaves if if everything stays perfect. We have to start distributing the bodies out of the academy appropriately as well. That level 5 up-down should get 2 to 3 bodies while that tower gets 1. So they're both releasing 3 people over the same course of time. So it's exploring those, working with the NCEP team from everything Jamal said and the ideas mentioned there.
And the last I'll say to that is just like I said about the MVT abacus is you can't have people that lack creativity. You can't have people that don't have the desire and drive, the passion to attack problems. These problems exist, and just doing it the same way over and over is not serving our membership. Or saying, I got to wait until the CBA opens so I can address these things. It's ridiculous, and it's quite truly derelict to the positions that you're asking to be in when you can't figure out ways to improve what you're already tasked with doing.
Yeah, and not to overly soapbox here, because I know we've been on this topic for a minute, so I'll keep this brief. That's where we have effectively killed the SWAT process in lacking that creativity in ways we can do it. The main reason people wanted the credit back in the slate book is because they knew leave was getting harder and harder to come by, and they wanted credit so that way somebody else could, they could work for someone so somebody else could get leave. That was a byproduct of that. The SWAT process, we need to bring it back, especially for like-type facilities. Our en route to en route, there's no reason we don't find a way to address that, allow the more staff facility to release to the less staff facility, and when they achieve a level of certification, then they are released again. We could be doing the same thing for our up-downs, our towers, and looking at what makes sense, not just, well, we're bound by that rule forever, exactly as Jamal was just saying.
Thanks for the question, Phil. I think Brittany had actually asked that very question, Nick. So thanks for sweeping that up about the swaps. Now, because
thank you, Brittany, for keeping us on track.
It does. She's great with that. Chris, go ahead, brother. I think we've got you on mute.
Yeah, so since we're talking about NCEPT a little bit and how it's hard for facilities to release, why are we doing priority releases? What's your stance on them? Would you do more facilities? I understand that we have really short-staffed facilities, but at the same time, it doesn't seem fair to say you're going to one of these facilities, so you get to bypass the national release policy while someone trying to get back home has to wait 2-3 more years for another CPC to certify.
Chris, are you talking about like the MOUs for C90, N90, Atlanta, A80?
Exactly.
Miami. So one of the things that Jamal and I have spoke about time and time again is we have to get away from the facility-specific MOUs. That can't be wholesale. We'll never address a certain facility again. But especially when it comes to moves, we should just be setting a standard. If you're in making it where it rotates, and it doesn't matter what level facility you're in or what your criticality to the NAS is. It should be able to be, if you're, let's say, again, just hypothetically, Chris, if you were below this, a 76% staffing level, and that's what made you eligible for this criteria, and if you're below that for 2 months, you would go into a priority release status where you're able to select people to that facility that weren't able to necessarily be released through the normal process there to help bring and help recover the health of that facility. And maybe 5 facilities can be on that at a time. Oh, maybe 10, whatever that looks like. And as facilities gain those bodies, you move in and out of that system. But now it's one that serves everyone, not just serves a facility. Because the number one question that's usually asked, and it doesn't mean it can never be done, is why them, not us? Is anyone not recognizing our problems? So when you build a system that can encompass more in everyone that has these issues, I think that serves us the best in changing our mindset in the way that we approach those items. Jamal, I don't know if there's anything you want to add from there, brother.
Only thing I would add is when you go out amongst the facilities and not just to a few, you see that the problems are pretty much universal, and you're not as wowed when one facility tells you, look at our issue. Our brothers and sisters in those facilities have real issues, but as Nick said, they're not alone. So addressing it in a more global manner would be, and that's being out amongst the people. You see that we're all dealing with and facing the same issues.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, we have one more from Nick. My facility is a hot topic of a lot of the SLM meetings. Over the last year, typically in regard to our horrendous success rate and length of training time. There are some things in motion for us, but this is a very long-standing and unique issue. I love the ideas that experts and leaders have boots on the ground. We've never been visited by Rich during his tenure. Do you two intend to visit MWH anytime soon?
Well, you're not alone in not being visited by Rich. Most facilities have not. We absolutely, as Nick said before, one or both of us will be in every single one of our air traffic control facilities. We'll try to get to all of our Region X spaces as well and our flight service facilities because all of the membership matters. Moses Lake has come up at several SLMs, and that's because I'm a data-centric person and I'm not making this about me. As it relates to training, you can't do it off your gut. You have to be able to follow data. So we got the agency to start providing data of training times and certification times and not just using the PPT, but you really breaking it down and having a rolling average as opposed to the 5-year average, really looking at how many bodies we've sent to facilities and how successful they've been. So that's how Moses Lake rose to where it is in our ethos and our thoughts, but we still haven't done enough to address those issues. Going and talking to the people goes a long way. The very first question Jenny asked was, how do we get people re-engaged? being around them, telling them. Some people just want to know that you know their issue exists and that it matters to you. So by not going to facilities, how can you convey that? We have a responsibility to convey that, and we can't just leave it to the regional vice presidents. Then that when Paul and Trish would come to Las Vegas Tower, it would last for months, the impact that it had on our membership and on management. We will make sure that we do the same thing for you all.
Yeah, Nick, I'm glad that you want to see leadership in your facilities and continuing to press the issue because it's imperative. One of the things that we'll also do in conjunction, not just Jamal and I, we intend to work with the National Executive Board, because right now there is somehow a RVP for everything, meaning everything but their region in many occasions, and then they fulfill their regional duties on top of it. Let's start finding the committees, groups that need RVP support and assign them there. And outside of that, instead of having to have an RVP on every single committee there is, we have committee chairs for that reason. We have those groups actually elect their own chairs, and they never even get to speak on their own behalf to the National Executive Board. Let's put those RVPs right back in their facilities and with a level of expectation. I know I can speak for Clint, Joel, Alex, myself, John Bratcher, who's an RVP elect. We want to come up with a list of expectations where president, executive vice president, and collectively we determine together this month, let's get out to our facilities. Let's have this discussion. Let's cover these topics. And here's something that we want to hear back. Let us know what facilities in your region. Give us the 5 facilities that are struggling the most with training. Visit them. Let's find out why, what the impediments are, why it's not improving, and how can we as a union lean into that issue with the agency at the highest levels. Leaders have to seek what the issues are, not wait to see who screams the loudest and breaks through the glass and says, oh my God, we've been suffocating in here for years. It is incumbent upon us to execute a duty with that National Executive Board to go and seek out your issues, find out the problems, and ultimately work with you to solve them. That is going to be our goal.
Thanks for the question, Nick. As we wind down here, I want to circle back to something that kind of bookends the whole thing. It's from Katie Johnson. She said, I don't know how you guys could do this, but I think the members need to hear and learn more about the executive orders, how they will and how they already have affected federal unions. Also, they need to understand the risks associated with opening the contract. These are 2 huge things that people don't fully understand. And I know we went through a segment there, and I thought we could circle back because Katie, I think, posted that kind of midway through.
I think it parlays into exactly what was just being said. When you have a president and executive vice president who work in conjunction with their team and don't need just one person taking the credit and the president saying, look what I did. When you say, hey, this is important to our members, let's have a clear and concise message as a National Executive Board, and let's go educate. And guess what? The ARVPs are out there too on their own island. We need to be bringing them into the conversation so we have more persons equipped with the knowledge, leaders of this union, to be able to have that exact impact of what you're saying there, Katie. So you're right. It is an embarrassment that we don't have a concerted effort. It is right now. Rich's direction was, yeah, you could go do that if you want in your regions. We would absolutely approach that in a different way of, we will be doing this, and we'll hold these town halls. We'll answer the questions. We'll take the feedback, and collectively we become stronger from it.
The only thing I'll add is it's the biggest threat to our existence as a union, and the fact that we're not talking about it shows you that there's a reason they've made it a talking point of their campaign. They've cast it on us, so we'll do the dirty work. We'll do our best to educate every member. I would ask you to verse yourself on it, Katie. You sound like a person with leadership capabilities. Verse yourself on it and spread the word far and wide. You do have resources beyond that, but if we want to set up a Zoom with your area, your region, whatever it may be, we'll absolutely do that.
Thanks, guys. Chris had one more question. He said he was running around. He couldn't raise his hand. He said, COVID brought about the 5 on, 10 off and 5 on, 5 off schedules and gave everyone a little taste of what a reduced work week looks like and feels like. How do we get back to a reduced work week again?
I think it's capitalizing on the times that we have. I mean, listen, the American economy, American public usually sets that standard for what they believe to be acceptable. Other countries have already moved to a more reduced work week, a more well-being centric lifestyle. We have to learn not only from them, but start being and educating, moving the public to not only increase things or have things like a reduced work week, but especially when it comes to our pay. When we take the time to be our own media, tell our own story, hell, this is a perfect time to start capitalizing on breaking down those walls of the way it has always been, right? PPL did that very thing. Fatigue is a real issue. We know that there are very few controllers in the system right now, but it doesn't mean we can't set phased approaches of how that would impact and show us. And now we actually have the data to show it. During the 5 on 5 off, you had some of the least amount of sick leave that's ever been used in the system. People were able to come to work and perform at a higher function. And those things we can use in how it benefits us. Now, can Jamal and I wave the magic wand and get everybody a reduced work week? No, but can we capitalize on the issues that we have at hand to introduce those conversations? And like Jamal said, you have to have leaders that are creative in doing that. Absolutely. And if that opens itself for a possibility, we should push down that road, and not only push down that road, run down that road.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Alex, go ahead, brother. Should be able to unmute.
Oh, that's fancy. I'm not going to turn on my camera on that softball. So I did want to address Katie's question, and I share that same concern about education insofar as the executive orders, what they are, what they could mean for us, and what we need to be prepared to engage in. It came up at the regional meeting that we just had in Salt Lake. We did a thorough briefing for everybody. We utilized a previous PowerPoint presentation that Dean Capelli had developed, and then Joel has refined to be more current. And then we've taken that a step further to kind of give it a newer paint job, as it were, and we're populating talking points. What we plan to do in the region is educate the leadership team to be able to deploy these conversations in town halls or Zoom calls or whatever, in-person venue, whatever it is that's necessary to educate the folks. We're going to empower more than just one person. In the previous board, when these executive order briefings came out, it was laid at the NEB exclusively to deploy the messaging. Then COVID hit, and that kind of just fell to the wayside. We never got around to actually briefing the executive orders in its totality. This time around, we don't have those limitations like Jamal just kind of alluded to. It's more of what can we create to get the message out. It's left to our own devices. It's not a national effort. It's left on the initiative of each and every RVP, for good or bad. I choose to turn that into a situation of good. So we're going to empower leadership teams to be versed on it. So it's not just waiting on me to deliver the message by myself. It's going to be a team of people to deliver the executive orders to as many people as possible. We just need to get to a point where everybody's thoroughly versed and able to speak to this. We learned a hard lesson with what just happened with the pay briefing, where if the PowerPoints get out there on their own, absent the conversation to have a firm dialogue, then somebody can pervert it into whatever narrative that they want to. We saw that with the Divine Camp with the pay briefing. We don't want that to happen with the executive order briefing. We want to make sure that people are able to have a thorough discussion, have a back and forth, and not just read and make up their own narrative as they see fit for their own designs. We're going to make sure that people have an honest and back and forth conversation. So that's the plan for the region, is to educate the leadership team to deliver the executive orders to everybody. As soon as we get that rolling, we're definitely going to start advertising for any and all people to invite us to give whatever briefing and whatever venue that they choose for.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate that. We've got a question from Anita. Are there plans to create a method for lower level facilities to communicate and bring issues to light, similar to like the Center Fact Rep groups or the Core 30 meetings?
Yes, very much so. And Nick displayed it when we went through our 4 through 9 in its infancy. Our 4 through 9 town hall was that, yeah, we believe it's such a large swath of people that have been underrepresented, most certainly by the agency through infrastructure, funds, um, development and technologies, implementation of simulation, so many things that quite frankly, don't even have the same level of air traffic management. Those people have been, quite frankly, not taken care of well by this agency for a very long time. And they deserve to have a council very similar to the Core 30 Center Fac Rep, large TRACON that can speak their unique issues and bring that forward to the NEB and to back to themselves, out and in, and to the masses as a whole. So absolutely, that's something that we will propose, and we've already started the framework of a charter for that type of a work group.
Perfect. Thank you. We have one more question from Alan Zellas. I missed most of this, but I have a question. Are you going to visit the Seattle area facilities anytime soon? I am the FAC rep at Seattle TRACON, and it would go a very long way with the local membership here who routinely feel left out of the national conversation.
Alan, we will absolutely be in the Seattle area, specifically to your facility here in the near future prior to ballots going out. Jamal and I are finalizing the dates. We're trying to swap a couple dates around because, doing this on the weekends and annual leave and then doing work on top of it, it makes the juggling act quite real. However, the reps have been so welcoming and facilitating to that, but our team is finalizing that. You will have the date soon, and we look forward to being there, brother.
Excellent. Okay. Chris Hastings says, I know we talked a little bit about breakpoints. What changes would you have proposed to the TCI formula, and why haven't they been brought up to the NEB or agency or been implemented?
Well, Chris, we did. We talked about it at length, but one of them, for instance, is a class delta multiplier. We think that should exist. But again, there's 13 to 16, and I keep saying 13 to 16 because the number has changed, and I don't have it absolutely locked into my brain. But changes to or modifications to the MVT, to the TCI and multipliers that have to be looked at. Why they haven't been looked at is, again, the leadership in those positions, the lack of ingenuity, the over-reliance on the CBA, and the lack of a willingness to say, let's look at these things right now. They've already been proposed. So I will get that MOU to you directly, Chris, and maybe make it available for everyone. I'll talk with Nick and see about that, but certainly I'll let you see that. But it's not for a lack of our desire. That's just where they are right now with the current. As I said previously, Mick is the MVT administrator, for lack of better words. He's the lead for both the MVT and advocates for NACA. It's your guess is as good as mine why he hasn't brought those things up. Probably will starting tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Chris. I think we have fished out the chat. I don't see any more hands up, so maybe this is the time to throw to Nick and Jamal for any final thoughts and comments.
We have one hand up now.
I would never stop the great Sam.
Sam snuck. Go ahead, Sam. Nice to see you.
Sorry, guys. I'm at the airport and I was trying to type fast, but it didn't work. But so as I'm coming off of a collaboration thing, and jumping on this and hearing all your guys' unique ideas, which I think is much needed. Collaboration's been around a really, really long time. And I know we have a ton of new people coming into the agency, going into the management ranks and into the NACA rep roles. You guys have any ideas on things that we can do to re-engage both on the NACA and the management side? Because let's face it, there are NACA reps that don't know what the word even means, let alone how to practice it. But do you guys have ideas on how we can re-engage that to further the message more than we already have the last 10 plus years?
Yeah, I start off with Sam. One, set the example. That is going to be a key for a leader out there. And Rich doesn't set that example. when it comes to collaboration. It was the first time that I've heard that our union actually walked away from collaboration when he said we couldn't collaborate on N90, so we had to negotiate, try formal. And formal didn't work, and then they were trying to move from there. And this was prior, well prior. This was over a year and a half ago, before the recent activity at N90, which we obviously stand in solidarity of those that are the 17 that are being forced to move. We in no way want to see anyone represented by this union forced to move. But with that being said, that example has to be set. And when we start saying we're willing to walk back from collaboration and go formal, which don't even know what that looked like in that forum, it seemed to be just more of a, throwing out some words in order to move beyond the topic. That starts to open up that idea for management, especially at the upper level, saying, oh, we can do this formal thing now. That's an option. That has to be first and foremost. The other part of it is we continuously teach to our new representatives what collaboration actually means by the contract. Our collaboration facilitators do an outstanding job of going around and talking about how to collaborate. And also our right from the start team does an amazing job of furthering that discussion. However, we have to get down to the actual brass tacks of what does our contract say. As Jamal said earlier, that's just the floor. That's the beginning. That's the non-negotiable part and where we start. And those words in that contract are extremely powerful. When you talk about the work life and productivity of the employees that we represent, and that we will be engaged in those discussions. Quite often we're waiting for the agency to engage, and we need to breathe the life back into those words of how we should be the ones leading the conversation. We propose the ideas, and we as a union are the ones that are holding the agency accountable to when they don't collaborate. I think it's not a way of trying to stomp down management through collaboration. It's saying we're going to uphold our rights. And that with that, when you are able to show the membership, I'll give you an example, is that Houston Center, they came in and changed the mid-shift rotations overnight, no collaboration. And we went into a, full on, multi-day throwdown on holding the line of collaboration, and we believe in it or we don't. And ultimately we were able to have it all reversed. And now they worked on it together and implemented something different. So management will always take advantage of that. It will be it's up to us to set the example on not only how it works, but also the upholding of our rights. So Jamal, I don't know if there's anything you want to add from there, brother.
Only thing is examples of the examples. Make sure that, Paul and Trish, Terry and Paul always did things in a collaborative manner to set the example. Our recurrent training would have videos of Paul and Terry, and that gave everyone a feel for what it meant at the national level to collaborate, and that permeates. It trickles down, and we've lost that. We've lost someone that wants to engage. These are active, engaged positions. It's not I and I alone. It's we. Collaboration is an example of we, and that's what we're missing. Is you can't have a fixer. You need all of us engaged in addressing all the problems.
I think my brother Eddie Delisle, who have been honored to learn from and grow with in this union, said it best. That's the difference in leaders being proactive versus reactive. Bring collaboration through us setting the example of being proactive and not waiting for the issues to happen to us.
Okay. Well, it took them a little bit to get started, but they settled in nicely and they came through with flying colors asking questions. So obviously, I think I'm not seeing any more in the chat. I'm not seeing any more hands up, and I'll turn it back over to you guys to share some final thoughts.
I'll be brief. This election is now yours, right? We will continue to educate. We will continue to be out there every way, shape, or form in front of any person that we can talk to. Agree, disagree. We'll all have different ideas. Choose leaders that are going to be standing with you, not out in front of you and not above you and telling you what to think or promising you things. Somebody who's going to set a purpose and direction for this union, and Jamal and I are those candidates. But you have to be the one that helps spread the message. This is your election. We're the candidates, and it's our job to educate and to share and to listen to these ideas. Now you own this part. Get out there and work and talk to others about it. If you don't, we'll look back in 2.5 months from now and say, what the hell happened? Why did it not turn out the way that we thought it would? We should vote at a record turnout. We will help you in every way, shape, or form. If you need us to have a Zoom with your facility, we will. Do not let rhetoric and rumor run this election. Hold the candidates accountable. Let's show who we can be and ultimately vote for what we will be. Jamal?
I would add that the reason you don't get this from the other side is because tough questions require education, requires people that are versed in the things that they want to be leaders of. You know, you have to know what you're talking about to be in these positions. And when you don't know, you have to be willing to do it. You saw us take questions from pay to TCI breakpoints to mental health to NCEP. We hide from nothing. We can't hide from our membership. They're campaigning to you in snippets of videos, telling some people the things they want to hear with no substance behind it. This is a substance-based position. Our profession is too important to make it into a joke. We value you as much as you value your leadership, and we ask that you cast ballots for us when the time comes. Thank you all for your time.
Our website is posted in the chat. Please don't just go there to get information for yourself, but share it with other people who need that information. Our social media is there. Give us a follow. Stay up to date. It's not always about likes and reposting. It's about staying engaged. We're going to see this through to the finish line. Thank you for being so gracious with your time tonight. We bid you all good night.